Success is Subjective podcast series brought to you by the College Parent Survival Network, presented by Lilly Consulting. I'm your host, Joanna Lilly. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing both Jason and Debbie Grygla. Now, Jason is a licensed clinical mental health counselor and the co-founder and executive director for Techie for Life, which is a specialized mentoring program for neurodiverse young adults in St. George, Utah. Debbie, his wife, is a certified life coach and the admissions and marketing director for Techie for Life. They're also co-hosts of a podcast, which you'll hear about during this interview. And I just want to jump right in. So let's not wait any longer. Here's Debbie and Jason. All right. I'm super excited. Debbie and Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the Success is Subjective podcast. I'm literally over the moon. I can't stop smiling. It feels like seeing really happy, familiar faces. And I wish I could reach through the screen and hug you right now as if this was in person. But alas, these are the times that we're still in. I'm glad that we're doing this. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and get started because I think your joint story is very unique. So
thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Why don't you tell listeners, where did you both grow up? And then what were you hearing from your family around your family as well as the community in which you were raised about expectations around post-secondary education?
It's interesting. Both of my parents came from big, poor families, and none of their siblings got any education, but both of my parents did. My dad got a master's. My mom didn't quite finish her bachelor's, but she went off to college to get a good education. And that was different for both their families. So for my parents, it was really important for us as kids to get an education. I don't think they put pressure on us. There wasn't a big problem with it. It was just like, education's good. We want you to get educated. We want you to be able to have opportunities and options. And usually the more education you have, the more opportunities you have. So I thought it was a very healthy upbringing. And I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what. And that is a big part of my story, I think, is we must have changed our minds 15 times on what we wanted to be when we grow up until I was 48. And we're still figuring that out. So
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
For me, both my parents went to college also. My mom didn't finish, but she talked fondly of it. And my dad was an attorney. And we grew up moving all around California. He worked as an attorney for different towns and counties and would move to bigger ones. And I had pretty big expectations. My big goal was to go to BYU. So we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that's like the college, Brigham Young University in Utah. And I had big goals to get good grades and get a scholarship there. And so that was I was like the high achieving straight A student, wanted to go there, but didn't.
Well, that's a good segue. So then what happened? What did you do once we'll say the bell tolled, right? 18 years old, you've got your high school diploma. What happened? What was transition into adulthood like for you? And what did you both do?
So in my story, I was always the straight A student and I was the valedictorian of 8th grade. And then my appendix ruptured. And for the next year, my freshman year of high school, I got sick all the time. Every flu or whatever came around, I got sick and I missed 39 days of school that year. And I couldn't keep good grades. And my parents divorced that year. So it was a really rough start. And I was I've blown it. I can't get a scholarship now. I'm not gonna be able to go to BYU. And so it was a hard thing to go through. And then I went to 3 different high schools because when my parents divorced, we were in Northern California, and then we moved to Southern California and we were there for a little bit. And then we went to Arizona. So I went to 3 different high schools, but a turning point for me was realizing it's okay. There's other ways to do it. And so I was really good at doing hair. I was cutting my family's hair. And so I decided I was going to go to beauty school and work my way through college doing hair. And so that's after high school, I graduated, I went to beauty school and then I was making such good money doing hair and I did do a semester at college, got married
Yeah.
And then
We both went
Yeah.
to a community college. After high school, I went on a mission for our church, and that 2-year gap was awesome for me. It helped me grow up quite a bit. I actually did do a semester of college at BYU Hawaii, which was really just a great experience for one semester, right? And then I left to go on our church mission, and when I came back, I ended up going to Phoenix from Page, Arizona, where I grew up, to Mesa Community College, where I met Debbie, and she was young, and yet we really connected and we liked each other. And I love telling the story that I married Debbie at 18 in Vegas, which she was technically 18, shy of 2 weeks. And, it almost makes it feel like I stole her from the cradle, but she was a very mature 18-year-old, the oldest of her siblings, very driven. She was my equal in every way. And, and we ended up getting married in Vegas, but it was a big family thing. We didn't run away or anything, but it was still a lot of fun. Anyway, after a semester, we just had to decide what were our priorities, because we were married now and responsible financially at age 21 and 18, and
22.
I was 22 maybe. And
Yeah.
I think we decided that Debbie was making enough money that she needed to stay home and put me through school, which is kind of a traditional approach and not fair at all, but it's what we decided. And it helped. And that works really well if you stay married, but the divorce rates are so high that, man, sometimes that's a really bad idea. But it seemed to work for us.
Well, I had a career.
And she had a career.
I wanted to go to college to be a teacher, but I was actually making more money working less days doing hair.
Yeah.
And I realized this is actually not a bad gig.
So she kept doing hair, which was good, and supported me through college. When I got done with my bachelor's degree, by then we had been foster parents and done a bunch of things, but I just didn't know what I was going to be. And I got my degree in human resource administration, a business degree. But by the end of my business degree, I was more interested in the human resource side, the emotional human side of business. But I was always a business-minded entrepreneur, but I was just interested in people. When I finished my degree, we didn't know what to do. And we heard about people teaching English in China. So we packed up within 2 months. And once we heard about it, 2 months later, we were in China teaching English for a year together, which was probably my happiest year of our life. I loved it. It was an adventure. It was awesome. We lived in Xi'an. We taught English. She taught privately off campus, and I taught on the campus of a university, Xi'an Foreign Languages University. And we were going to go back for a second year because it was just so fun. Such a great life, and we loved the people and the culture. They treated us like royalty, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. But we both just felt really like we should go home and get back to real life. And so we ended up not going back for the second year. And that's pretty quickly after that, we ended up fostering our 2 older boys that are now 29 and 30. And we ended up adopting them. So we felt like there was some intervention there, that we were ready to start our family. But I still didn't know who or what I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be a cop. So I went and did that for a long time. I started working.
Wood windows.
I sold wood frame windows to open up a business. I was lost. I knew I wanted to provide, but I didn't know what or how. I didn't know what I was good at.
Probation officer for a while.
Yep. To be a police officer, I went and worked in juvenile detention. That actually ended up paying for my bachelor or my master's degree, which I ended up getting in counseling because I was going to be a police officer. And when I couldn't get hired doing that, ended up deciding I was going to go be a Navy chaplain, in the Navy. I mean, I was all set. And then the military changed all the rules last minute. And I would have had to go back and get a degree, another master's degree, just as I finished up my master's in counseling. I didn't really want to be a therapist. I actually hated that. My dad was a social worker and a therapist, and I never wanted to be my dad. And I love him and I respect him, but I did not want to follow in his footsteps. So I kind of feel like I was tricked by the universe and pushed into this place where I was really good, but I on my own would have never done it. Ended up getting my degree. The military changed the rules. I didn't go get to be a chaplain in the Navy. So when it didn't work out with the Navy, I ended up going and being a therapist, which I never wanted to do. I was going to do my own thing, branch out. But I felt like, I don't know, that was the path that felt right at the time. I ended up working for that place for about 10 or 11 years. And then I went into private practice for a few years, which gave me a really great foundation of just mental health in general, as opposed to an administrative social work setting. And I was on my own, doing my own thing, kind of a eat what you kill situation. I could earn as much or as little as I wanted. And I was on my own, which was great. My entrepreneurial spirit kind of kicked in, and I created a couple of workshops that did really well financially, but also helped a lot more people than just individual counseling. And that was great, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to sustain that. And this whole time, Debbie's at home raising our 2 and then 3 foster kids that we adopted, and they were all really hard. Hard kids. She learned a lot without going to school, but parenting wise and reading books and trying to survive these kids that were really hard. And I think that was just as much of an education as any schooling we would have ever done. Parenting in general is, but being foster and then adoptive parents was huge. And Debbie took that on. She homeschooled because that's what they needed for a while, because they couldn't function in the school setting. And that was a huge, in my opinion, a career for her.
Well, it goes back to Debbie's comment about wanting to be a teacher, right? It ended up being a very different, obviously you did it in China, but then to come back and now be a homeschool teacher for your own adoptive children, I'm always intrigued by how, our young adolescent brain is like, this is what I think I want to do. And then how sometimes we end up in that exact position. It just looks very different than we initially anticipated. Again, at 18, what does being a teacher look like, right? Going to school to get a degree in education, but do you really need a degree to be a teacher? So you have worn so many hats and done some really wildly adventurous things, which is so exciting for me, which also leads up to really what are you doing now? Because Jason, I think you started to say look, my entrepreneurial spirit was kicking in. I think that snowballed into the work that you all are doing, which obviously your own experiences, as well as the work that you're doing personally and professionally, really just kind of have teed you up to being in this perfect intersection. Yeah. So if I missed anything, please fill me in. Because I know that you've continued to do some amazing things, but also let us know, what are you doing right now?
So about 6 years ago, I started just itching to do my own thing. And I was working as a clinical director at a program, and it was a great job and I loved working there. And I wanted to do something different and more specific to my skill sets. And we ended up looking at what I could do well. And I looked at what the market was and what was needed. And any entrepreneur knows that if you find a need and fill it, you can usually do well financially. And my goal wasn't to get rich, but it was to have enough money to have my girls go to dance and buy a 4-wheeler so we could go out and ride in the desert and just do extra fun family things, because that's what I value is our family relationships. And so we ended up starting this program because of my son, who was adopted, and he was autistic, or he is autistic, and him and his friends and his peers, there was just not much out there to support them. It was either because you are neurodivergent and developmentally different, your brain is different, you either have to go to mental health counseling or nothing, because there was nothing in the middle. It was either you are a mental health kid or you can go to college on your own without counseling. And he didn't need counseling, but he couldn't do college on his own either. He needed something different. And we started to build this transition program from high school into adulting that was based on all the things we learned as parents, very little from what we learned as a therapist and as a juvenile probation officer. Although those things helped, we started a program called Techie for Life, and it's a very unique approach based on what they actually need, not traditions of mental health, for example. So I'm a therapist and I love therapy, but we don't do therapy at our school. We're actually a licensed vocational school. So we started this small vocational school that mentors and gives life skills to young adults who are neurodivergent. And that's been awesome.
And your therapist background and understanding of mental health is so valuable in what you do to make sure that, because there are the anxiety and depression, other effects of being.
So we help manage all their symptoms that they deal with, like depression and anxiety is a symptom of struggling being a square peg in a round world. And once the school became stable enough and successful enough to be okay and kind of out of the crises of a new business, Debbie started to get the itch, which I loved. And I want her to share what she decided to do.
Well, it was actually just when my youngest, we have 5 kids, they're ages 10 to 30 right now. Our 2 girls we had from doing infertility treatments, IVF. And my youngest was starting kindergarten. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have all this free time for the first time ever. And I was so excited. And then Jason's marketing admissions director left. She wanted to do something different. And so he asked me to come join him, and it felt right. It was like, yeah, let's do this. And so I got into that with him. But the thing I'd been moving towards was wanting to be a life coach. I'd been really doing a lot with that and studying it. And so a few years ago, it was actually during the COVID. It was right then, actually, when COVID was hitting. I actually enrolled in that March in training to become a life coach. And so I'm a certified life coach, and I coach parents, and I coach privately, and I do TFL parents, and I teach our life skill classes and do a lot of coaching with our students too. But I love it. And that was like, I never would have guessed. Like, that wasn't even a thing when I'd never heard of a life coach when I was in high school and as a young adult. So.
I think the thing that precipitated that was when she was doing hair, what she's really started to be passionate about was helping people find an image, not just cutting hair, but helping them really look their best, that felt like them. And she started to make this deeper connection than just being a hairstylist and kind of more of as an image consultant. And she really valued that mentoring, teaching thing again, that teacher part. And I think that's always been a part of her personality.
I've always had a gift for seeing the potential in people. So like in hair, it was seeing the potential of like, oh, if we did this, you could look amazing, or, little adjustments to, bring out your best. And I think it's the same thing with like coaching. It's like, oh, I see your potential. Like, let's unlock it and help you get it.
It's a total translation.
Yeah.
I'm actually like spacing out a little bit because I'm visualizing, sitting in a chair, right, in a salon, where then the hairstylist is like really trying to help me envision what it is I'm looking for, which is a complete transferable skill if you're just talking about like a coach and a client, right? Like, you're just helping somebody see their potential. Like you said, minor adjustments could be like a major difference.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So now she's gotten us onto this podcasting. We have our own podcast that we've been doing. That's been to add value to all of the parents, educators, whatever, that work with neurodivergent young adults. And that's one of our passions, because we really had no information. There was just nothing out there. There was a few books on Asperger's, but the research was scant, and there was not any good information. And it's still a very new field. And so we're diving into that 100%. And that's been a lot of fun. And so the thing that's been interesting is working together full time for the last 3 years while Debbie's becoming a life coach, while trying to do a podcast. Growth comes from being out of your comfort zone. And we've had a lot of conflicts just because we have different strong opinions. She's a life coach. I'm a therapist. We don't get along. You're not supposed to be a life coach. That's a cop out. She's like, oh, you therapists, you're too caught up in the, and so we have these great debates that helped us, I think, be refined. It's been all the uncomfortable places where I got fired from a job that made us make a shift, or I was lost and I had to really soul search to find out, what do we do next? Being willing to take the plunge and just go to China. I can't tell you how much that opened our eyes to just life, seeing a completely different culture and how humanity is, and be able to compare the two. So we've had all these great life education experiences on top of our regular education, I guess. And those have been more meaningful than, I think, the degree. Although the license itself has obviously been important to open doors, I think having a license to do therapy has added depth and professionalism, so people were more likely to trust us in a business setting. But that's where we're at now. We're running this program. We have about 15 employees. We have about 30 students we work with right now. We're actually turning a profit instead of hoping for grants to keep us afloat, which is hot and cold, up and down. And then we It's not that we were profit driven as much as we were. If we can't provide a product that supports and sustains itself financially, then it's not a good product. If we have to rely on government grants, it's not sustainable, even if it's a good cause. A lot of programs that are well-meaning end up going out of business. And so the more profit we make, the more we can scholarship students, which we love. We love mentoring. I think that's teaching. Every great teacher is a mentor. Every great coach is a mentor. Not all coaches are mentors, but every great coach is a mentor. Teachers, parents, all the best parents are mentors to their kids as the power differential shifts. And we're getting off topic there, but that's where we're at now. We've had all these life experiences, and we're able to give back in ways that are meaningful, and that ends up being financially successful. But we had to work on the financially successful. Do what you love and the money will follow is only true to an extent. There's a lot of starving artists.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to really hustle because otherwise you're going to be hungry.
Yeah.
Well, I think everything that you're saying actually really tees me up to ask the next question, which I ask every guest. And honestly, I'd love to hear both of you respond based on your thoughts with this question. Do you see yourself as successful?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to feel that. I think we've had so many like different kinds of successes over the years, but then like you look at your whole life to where you're at and just like the overall, like we're in a good place and it feels good and we're doing good work in the world. And, you're always like striving for the next thing or, working on the next project. But I think overall, just like how we approach it and where we're at and what we've been through and overcome. And yeah.
So when I was young, I was really idealistic, and being a policeman or a therapist or a teacher was all I was worried about was what am I going to do? And the older I got, the more I wished I had more financial ability to do more things for my family. My family became more and more important. I don't think it's selfish or shallow to say that money matters. I think it matters because it allows us to do the things that we want. And I think up until recently, therapists don't get paid much. They just don't make a lot of money. Counselors, they can in a few situations, but not typically. Their average salary is low, and yet any business, any work or profession you go into, if you can open your own business, you have a really good potential of making enough money to do the things that are important to you. And I think with this new business, me being the owner, I finally started making money instead of working for someone else. And that's been really good for my self-esteem. But the pressure was immense starting your own business. There were times where I really was thinking that it would be, I was thinking that it would be easier if I would just die, because the pressure I felt to make sure the money that we borrowed and the investors we had to make a business run, take a lot of risk. It was all on my shoulders. And that's the pay to own your own business. That's the sacrifice, right? Is that burden, because I really did care. If I didn't care, it would have been easy. Could have just said, oh, that failed, no big deal. But I really did care, and it was hard. It's very stressful for me because I really cared, maybe too much. But because I cared, I think that's one of the reasons we made it. When so many other businesses fail, we were just willing to go all in and keep it up. And we were smart enough to know which type of business to open. I think that was helpful as well. So I think we're successful mostly because we're really enjoying a large part of our life and our family. We've been able to do a lot with our kids, and we're successful because we went through such hard stuff, and our older boys are all pretty stable and out of our house. That was really hard for us. Our adopted kids were hard. And our two little girls that are biological, they have been such a joy.
So easy.
They've been so easy. And they give back, and our older kids were in such crises and trauma. And it's not their fault, and we love them to death, and they're doing amazing for where they came from. They were just a totally different, almost like we had two families. Mm-hmm. Our adoption years and then our daughter years. So we had two boys, and it was me and the boys, and now we have two girls, and it's Debbie and the girls. So we kind of switched from this male to a female dominated household.
You're forgetting our middle boy.
Yeah, and we do have a middle boy. He's there.
Well, I think that actually not just your perseverance, right? The passion to make Techie for Life work, but your own personal experiences of success. I like how you said this. You have adult children that launched. They're stable, they're on their own. And sometimes I think that honestly, the best advice that a parent can hear is hear it from another parent that it can happen, right? It can be done, and it's sometimes really hard. And I think that's what makes the magic of the work that you do, but more specifically, what you've created, that mentoring based model really works for this transition to adulthood. So I'm grateful for what you all have done. And so I think with that too, we're going to go a little off script, so bear with me. I know we love doing this, right? If you could give some advice to a young adult right now that might be struggling in some capacity, what advice would you give? And then here's the off script, because you are parents and because you work with parents, I think we also need to have you answer the question, what advice would you give a parent right now who has a struggling young adult?
Let me start with the parent part. Every kid has their own unique path. And for me, one of the things that's given me the most sort of peace of mind through it all is my kids all have to learn their own lessons, like they've got to learn through their own experiences. And so like trusting that, like if they're going through a tough thing, that must be the thing that they need to go through right now. And they're going to learn the things that they need to from that. And I don't have to protect them from it. I don't have to worry and stress. I just want to be there with them in it and love them as they're going through it, and know it can be up and down, but that they're having the kind of experiences they're supposed to have. Like we all have our own challenges and things. And then I guess it kind of goes to that to a young person, a young adult. It's like, you're going to have experiences, ups and downs. And that's just part of the journey. And like, nothing's gone wrong if something goes hard.
Yeah, there's no crises unless you make it a crisis. There's only really hard situations that are scary and unknowns, but there's only a crisis if we let it destroy us. Someone goes to jail and gets arrested. It can be the end of the world, or it can be like, wow, this really sucks. Time for a wake-up call. What are we going to do different? And throwing the timeline out has been really helpful, because it's not about performative milestones as much as it is about development. And that the timeline is so different for everybody. We have kids that we work with that their IQs are through the roof and they got perfect SAT scores, but they're not anywhere close to ready for the college experience, even though they can ace every class, right? So the timeline isn't important. It's the developmental timeline, the developmental process. So where a kid is where they're at. That's been important for us as parents to learn. I also wish I would have known younger about keeping a relationship of influence instead of staying the parent. Shifting from I'm the parent, you're the child mode into more of a mentor. We're equals with different situations, different responsibilities. We didn't have any more power over our children at a certain age. And we worked really hard, sometimes too late, to keep a relationship of influence where they wanted our help so that we could continue to influence them, as opposed to a rule-based or you have to based, or I'm the parent, so you will, or
I'm going to punish you, or I'm going to reward
I'd
you.
throw my own timeline expectations out and just be there with them. They ended up doing better and progressing and developing faster when I wasn't trying to push, force, coerce them into my timeline. So I would love for parents to be able to keep that relationship of influence and shift out of the parent role into a mentor role, because that actually gets you as a parent what you want anyway, as a successful, happy, independent child who's living their best life. So
love it. And I know that there are young adults and parents that are going to listen to this podcast and just be really appreciative of your own experiences, as well as hearing really that advice that you just shared, it's going to hopefully fuel their fire to reach out to you to learn about Techie for Life, but also even just like Debbie, for you, like maybe somebody is going to hear you and say, I really need her to coach me, right? Like I need these subtle changes. And so I hope they do. But with that, how do people actually connect with you?
So they can listen to our podcast if they want to, if they're interested. It's Autism and Neurodiversity with Jason and Debbie. And they can also find it on our website, jasondebbie.com. And then techieforlife.com is if there was interest in our school. But we've got that free resource if anyone wants to listen.
You know, we love helping parents. If they just want to email us and say, look, here's our situation. What do you know? Where can we go? We just want to be helpful to other parents and also many young adults struggling out there. So we're happy to answer questions. You can reach us through our website and just email us. We always send out free career assessments as well, which I think is a great thing because I wish everyone would take a career assessment when they're 18 and 19 or 20. We take them when we're 17, 16 in high school, maybe, and then take them again when you're 25 because I've probably changed my career 5 times.
Totally. And as a consultant, I would actually say I appreciate the monthly newsletters that you all send out because they are so very informative, and it like really shines a light on the work that you're doing, right? Highlighting everything, who it is that you're serving, all, like, again, the activities you're participating in. So it's just, you know, again, sometimes it's helpful for a parent to see like, yeah, what is going on, right? Like what's the insider kind of perspective. So I can't thank both of you enough for showing up to do this interview with me. It's evident that your own young adult experiences really like lined up together when you were young adults. And so it's really been beautiful for me to hear about your journey together leading up to where you are now, right? Again, personally and professionally. And so, yeah, I just can't thank you enough for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for
Thanks,
having
Joanne.
us.
We love what you do, and we love everything we're seeing on the podcast. Keep it up.
Yeah.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. Stay tuned for our next episode where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their very personal story with the world. You can follow me, Joanna, on Instagram at Lily Consulting and on Facebook at Lily Consulting LLC. Most importantly, though, check out the resources link on my website at lilyconsulting.com, and that's Lilley consulting.com, or you can just search on Google for Lily Consulting. You can also download and subscribe to listen to the Success is Subjective interviews on any popular podcast app, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Make sure you check out the show notes where you'll find contact information, website details, links to articles, and all social media for our guest. Thank you, our listener, for tuning in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.